Tolkien created a world where characters would speak the languages he developed. This world is Middle-earth, and the languages are Dwarvish, Orcish, Westeros, and many dialects of Elvish. Join Anthony and I as we delve into the Appendix E and F of The Return of the King to flesh out more about the pronunciation and word structure of the people speaking the languages Tolkien created. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the White City Podcast. Today I have a returning guest with me, Anthony, and I forgot your last name for a minute. Phillips, that's right.
Yeah, Anthony Lee Phillips. Yeah, Anthony Phillips is the guitarist for Genesis, so you got to put the Lee in there.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you've also written some of your own books and kind of in the process still of writing some things, I imagine, or
yeah. So I'm the writer of an epic fantasy called Nala Saga, an Orcish epic. So, but it's very much like Tolkien. You know, I made the Orcish language. That Orcish language is related to a bunch of other languages in that family tree. So, you know, like there's the Orcish language. You know, like it's a speakable, learnable language with grammar and exceptions and evolutions and dialects and things like that. And all of that is thanks to Tolkien. I mean, Tolkien really set the precedent as far as conlangs, as we call it, are concerned. And so like these two appendices are just like, they are not just a gold mine for a modern fantasy writer. They're the gold mine. It's so good. Just I think he has 3 paragraphs on Entish, and someone just did a video on it, and I'm like, yes, talk about Entish. I love Entish. You know, so it's very, very cool the way that he's made this world happen, and it inspires me every day I sit down to write, which is every day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, just looking at all this and seeing like all that he's like put into just describing things. I've read books like Aragon and I think there's another random series called like Binding of the Blade that's out there. Both very similar and like a lot of the kind of things they take from Tolkien, and you can see that they put some things about like languages kind of things that they put in their books, but I don't know that they actually have like an in-depth and I think didn't he complete one of the English Elvish dialects completely, or you just come close to it, or?
Well, some would say, but I mean, he, if you think about it, Tolkien was not actually a professor of creative writing. He was a professor of language. He was a professor of linguistics. You know, he was fixated on Old English and the Norse language. Norse and, Welsh and, so if Tolkien would have said, a language is never complete. That's what Tolkien would have said. But as far as you and I are concerned, yeah, he's got one proto-language that's basically complete, and then I think he has 2 dialects of Elvish that sort of branch off that are very, very good. I mean, like really close to complete. And one of them I think is kind of the common tongue of Elvish, which maybe we can get into, because I mean, it's such a cool Appendix E. Because right off the bat, he goes into like a pronunciation of words and names, is section 1 of Appendix E. And just real quick, the appendices are, it's like each appendix is its own book, okay? Like in the frame of Tolkien's world, J.R.R. Tolkien, John, he is a translator of an ancient text that they found. And what we're going to get into in Appendix F is Sam is not Sam's name. It's a translation of Sam's name so that we can remember who they are, so that he doesn't do crazy stuff like what I'm trying to do with Orcish, where I'm like, this is what it sounds like, so that's how I'm going to write it. He's like, no. The premise is, here is a hero you can remember. Here's Sam and Frodo. And even the complicated names like Aragorn is still not a direct translation. It's a little bit sideways. It's translated, and the reason that he's trying to do that is because, like we do in Norse, every time you see a different name of Odin, which is all the time, a lot of translators will just say Odin, and that's who it'll be, and they'll normalize it for reader comprehension. But medieval literature is not that way. And so the idea is that Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers and Return of the King, they're one huge saga. They're this huge tale that happens in these 6 different books. And each of those books could almost be like a series of tablets or a series of palimpsests, and the appendices are the translator's notes. And each appendix is like a book of like, I am the translator, and I thought that I would finally talk about dialects. That's Appendix E. So like the appendices, it sounds like it's extra stuff. It's not. Each one is kind of like a book. It's kind of like its own thing, So I just wanted to have that real quick. But right off the bat, the Western or common speech has been entirely translated into English equivalents. And so right off the bat, we get like, what's common? In D&D, what's the common tongue? And he says here, it's called Western. I think that like, right off the bat, we're world building. It's so cool. Do you want to pick it up with that next sentence, the all Hobbit names?
Oh, yeah. All Hobbit names are special words. All Hobbit names and special words are intended to be pronounced accordingly. For example, Bulgur has G as in bulge, so it would actually be bulgur, and Matham rhymes with fathom. Okay.
Yeah. And so this is cool because like it's a guide, like this first part is just a guide on sounds. It's saying like I'm going to have a lot of markings in here, and here's what I mean by that marking. So like matham and fathom, bulgur and bulge. Just cool. Mm-hmm. Thoughtful.
Yeah. It's interesting how like towards the end there he talks about how High Elven Quenya has been spelled as much like Latin as it sounds aloud. So cool. I guess like it's closer to how we would pronounce letters, at least in English maybe. I mean, because a lot of that comes from Latin too.
Yeah. And I think what he was really trying to say is like the old language, I spelled it old. Like Quenya is the Latin of the Elvish languages, just as Latin is the old language to English, which I think is really cool. And then he sort of has a justification as a linguist to say like, well, if you're reading Latin, like if you're reading Latin, the C is like this. The C is like it is in Latin, right? I have anglicized it into like this is the Latin equivalent in our world.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. How he's like. So basically, he's doing with like Quenya, or I don't know. Is that Quenya or Kenya?
I think it's Quenya.
Quenya.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Although we may be corrected later on in this because it's been a really long time since I spend a lot of time in Appendix F because it's about mutation, and this is about like if you want to learn, here are the sounds that you say, right? So C, when it's a lone C, he's saying it's K, and CH is not church, it's Bach.
Okay.
It's that wet C. So like he's saying like this is the pronunciation key. Mm-hmm. The DH I think is really cool. So DH I've been anglicizing it in Orcish as DD because I figured out that you can do that. I actually figured that out from Elden Ring. I didn't know that was a thing. And it's like an old English thing of the D and D. It makes a the sound so that you can spell TH for th and then DD for the. And like you could, he's saying like do DH blav, like that would be spelled dhat, that, right? F is F. Except at the end of words where it is used to represent the sound of V. That's kind of interesting. So, like, Gandalf is technically Gandalf. I did not catch that the first time around.
Gandalf.
All right. G is give. H is house and hold. Oh, this is interesting. The Quenya combination HT has the sound of cht, or cht, I think, as in echt.
Okay.
Acht,
Interesting.
right?
German. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of German, and so this actually is helpful, though, because I can hear it, in my head. So the H is H, but then every once in a while, HT has a cht sound. So, like, the example he gives is telumetar, and so that would be telumechtar.
Okay.
Telumechtar. Kind of interesting.
Orion. So, like, a lot of these are going to be... Like, are all these going to be, like, shown in, like, like, the original... Like, this is supposed to be, like, the original, like, language, right? That, like, the Silmarillion was written in, or, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, some of these words aren't going to show up in the book naturally, or...
Well, the cool thing about this, I think that this beginning part is really just a pronunciation guide. He has consonants and then he has vowels, and so we're not even really talking... He's talking about regionalisms when it comes up, like to say, hey, the C in Quenya is not like this, because the C in Quenya is like in Latin, when they make it ch. So, like, if you're speaking Quenya, then you're going to pronounce this differently. But for the most part, these all seem pretty universal, which is kind of cool. And it's a pronunciation guide.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just like, when it says the name, to a machter...
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Does that name, that name doesn't even come up, does it?
I don't know that name. I mean, I'm sure... Well, here's the thing. The Silmarillion is dense. There are a lot of spots in the Silmarillion that, like, they do require careful study. I would not be surprised if that name showed up, but I don't remember it. You there? I think you went black. Well, now that I have the room to myself. No, I'm going to keep on talking about some of the pronunciations, but I want to skip over to the vowels in Appendix E. So... For vowels, the letters I, E, A, O, and U are used, and in Sindarin only, Y. So that's kind of cool. Sindarin, oh.
Okay.
Welcome back.
We're back. Thank you.
We're back.
Yes. My laptop ran out of battery, so.
Oh, man. Well, there it is.
Well, we are
well,
back.
It's still recording.
Yeah, we're back recording, because it's like, it still knows, like, the files that we had are still
cool. Great.
the web. So they're in the air. They're still out there.
It's hard to repeat discovering things.
Yeah. It'll all, like, start re-uploading whenever,
okay, cool.
like, we finish.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, where were we? What's the last thing you remember before you went under?
Well, the last thing I remember is that, we were definitely talking some about the sounds, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're in this first part of Appendix E, and this is this is like the music and the writing of Elvish, and like it does have the music and writing of some of the other languages, I think. But the main one, the like big, showpiece of this chapter is Tengwar and the writing system of Tengwar, which is what I think he spent the most time on. But yeah, it is the same appendix that has Dwarvish in it, which is very cool. But you can see, like, this is the other thing about the appendices, which is awesome. Tolkien never stopped working on his world, on his Silmarillion. when people say, oh, you have world builder's disease, I'm like, I dream of having Silmarillionitis. You know, like it's an incredible disease that creates incredible worlds. Patrick Rothfuss has it, and I love it. You know, I'm like, yeah, take more time. I have 2,000 pages of mysteries to figure out, and most of those mysteries are magical lore. Sick. And like the evolution of spoken language. And here, like the spoken language is really important to Tolkien. I'm not saying it wasn't, but the writing system is so nuanced and so interesting. And when you see him, there's that video, have you seen it, of him writing in, I think it's Sindarin, one of the Elvish languages? It's so cool. He's very nervous, and he's like, oh, I've already made a mistake. You know, you can't tell, you know, partially because it's his language, but then partially because it's like, it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And also, like, if there were scribes, they would probably be writing as fast as they could at a certain point, is what you start to find. You know, you do find as people write more and more, they get more and more comfortable. You can see it in Sumerian tablets even. You know, in Sumerian tablets, the early Sumerian tablets would fit a lot less glyphs, runes on a tablet. And by the way, the tablets were about this big. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, we can, well, that's Sumerian's a tangent. We're talking about Elvish. But this first section is about the sounds and about how to, like, say the words, how to make the music of the language. And then it gets into the writing and the Feanorian letters. And I don't know if you guys know who Feanor is, but it's like, yeah, these are the Feanorian letters of Feanor, the one, you know, and you get to see he doesn't exactly have an alphabet. He has something a lot more like Hebrew, which is, I think it's called an abjad, where you have consonant sounds and then they're modified with vowel markings. You know, he created a Hebrew for elves. And so, like, and that's what the Silmarillion is in a really cool way. The Silmarillion is like a kind of a Bible for elves. It's like if the Bible was sort of rediscovered by another culture in another language who had different conceptions of what the one God is and what the, you know, the Catholic pantheon is. Which I think is really interesting. And then Lord of the Rings is much more like a saga. It really is a lot more like, what's the big one? The Saga of Sigurd.
The Nordic one, you're saying?
Yeah, he was really into the Nordic sagas, you know.
Yeah, like the different, there's like one in particular you're thinking about?
Well, yeah, there's one that's like the really big one about the guy who slays a dragon.
Oh.
Sigurdur.
Yes, wait, it's
but I can't remember what the saga's called.
Volsung. No, it's not the Volsunga, is it?
Yeah, Saga of the Volsungs. Yes. Okay. Saga of the Volsungs. Exactly. But you know, like that is very different than the poems of the Poetic Edda, which are about Thor and Odin and Loki and Ragnarok. You know, those are very mythical. Those are very Silmarillion, you know, biblical in scope, cosmic. And then the sagas are much more Frodo, then got the ring, and then he got stabbed, and this happened, and then this happened, and this happened.
So the question I have is, could you take the Silmarillion and write it
In theory, you could. Now, do we have the glossary for it is the question. But actually, that would be really, really sick. I think the first step would probably be breaking the Silmarillion into verse, which sounds crazy, but like all that means is like you pick a verse form, and every time the phrase is over, you make a line, because then you're translating it a phrase at a time, which is how language works. Which is how, like, even, I mean, I was talking earlier about the Ents, right? In Appendix F, there's this part where it talks about the difference between English and Entish and these other languages and Entish. It's a short section, so I'll just read the whole thing here. It's 2 paragraphs. Of other races, Ents, the most ancient people surviving in the Third Age, were the Onodrim or the Enid. So that's cool. Like, they have their own names for these things. They were known to the Eldar, which is the elves, in ancient days, and to the Eldar, indeed, the Ents ascribed not their own language, but the desire for speech. The language that they made was unlike all others. Slow, sonorous, agglomerated, which I'm going to have to look up, repetitive, indeed long-winded, formed of a multiplicity of vowel shades and distinctions of tone and quality, which even the masters of the Eldar had not attempted to represent in writing. They used it only among themselves, meaning the Ents, but they had no need to keep it secret, for no others could learn it. And that's also cool. There's an implication that you want to keep some language secret. I recently watched a video of somebody talking about how in Tolkien, there are lots of people keeping little secrets all over the world, which I think is really interesting. A lot of the plot progresses because Saruman keeps a secret. At first from Gandalf, and then he keeps the secret of, the secret of wanting to make his own ring from Sauron. And you see this all over the place. Smeagol is almost like the little lord of secrets, of keeping secrets and not telling the whole truth. Ents were, however, themselves skilled in tongues, learning them swiftly and never forgetting them. But they preferred the languages of the Eldar and loved best the ancient High Elven tongue. The strange words and names that the hobbits record as used by Treebeard and other Ents are thus Elvish, or fragments of elf speech strung together in Ent fashion. Some are Quenya, as this abominable pair of words, which may be rendered...
I want to give it a try.
You should.
I want to give it a try. We got...
Do it.
Twirliolomia tumbala morna tumbalataria lomeanor.
Yes, which may be rendered forest many, shadowed, deep valley black, deep valley forested, gloomy land. That's what the words mean, and by which Treebeard meant more or less, there is a black shadow in the deep dales of the forest. And then it talks about some other words. Some are Sindarin is Fangorn, beard of tree, or Fimbrathil, slender beach. But this crazy word, what is it again? Give it to me.
Give it to you again? Right,
yeah.
We got Twirliolomia tumbarla morna tumbalataria lomeanor.
Yeah, it's epic. It's got such a texture. And like, if we break this down word by word, the first word is forest many shadowed. Toralilomea. And so like somewhere in there is the word forest and the word many and the word shadowed. And then the next word is Tumbalamorna, which is deep valley black. And then Tumbalatorea, something like that. And that, like each one of these, but I want you to notice, like, where's the verb in that? Forest many shadowed, no verb. Deep valley black, no verb. Deep valley forested, no verb. Gloomy land, no verb. He's saying the language of the trees has no action because trees don't do things.
What's interesting to think about too, though, is you think about like runes or even like Fëanor's,
Yeah, the Tengwar.
The Tengwar. Like, they represent something, or you think about like Japanese, right, characters, Chinese characters, they represent something, right? And you can't it's not like Latin where you have every single, thing spelled out to like really know how to pronounce it. So in kind of a similar way, it's like gloomy land for an Ent probably means that it's, what was it? The deep dales or something, black shadow.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And gloomy land is Lomanor, I think. Which is like that in itself. Like right now we're just trying to parse out the sounds, but he was just so smart about the music of language. Once you know how to say Aragorn, it sounds like a prettier word than it looks like on the page. Lomanor. Or I think there's an accent over the O, so it's probably Lomanor. Let's see what he has to say about stresses in the previous chapter. But it's just so cool. And great job, by the way. Taking the first stab at it. It's
you gotta say it with a deep voice too, to kind of get the entish going.
Gotta say it with a deep voice.
Ballroom. I hope there is. I don't know. Like I've listened to quite a bit of some podcasts that read from the books. Like sometimes people will comment. Like, we're not going to read like too long of a piece because for some reason it infringes on copyright.
Yeah.
But no, I think that going here and there with it is good. So
I think the 2 paragraphs is no, that's a good call. It's a good call. We should figure out that number. Although I guess it's always changing, isn't it? But yeah, just the rights laws with how much of a book you can share.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, those 2 appendices are so cool. They're probably my favorite part of Lord of the Rings. Because that was the music of the language and the writing of that language, and then how it evolves into different things. That's that's the juice of Tolkien, and I think it was the juice for Tolkien is also a part of it. You can tell that a lot of his love went into it. He thought about how languages evolve and who got here first, and when they got here, what language did they have, and then how did that change? And because of that, you don't need to know all of the details about every language, but little details are very important. The first time that I read that Ent passage, and I was looking through it as a conlanger for the first time and really getting the concepts. Now I kind of understand subject-object relationship a little bit better. I now understand a little bit more about how a sentence is structured in other languages, what an ergative sentence looks like and things like that. And so I feel like I can appreciate these things in a way that I wasn't able to before, because he really does. He evolves it sonically, instead of Rohan, he says it comes from Rohan, and anytime the letter is doubled, there's an elongation, so that changes the sound of it. H's become h, or h becomes h, F, it comes from V. There are all of these linguistic things that just pop up in languages all over the world, because when people use the language, they make mistakes in writing and hearing, which is just so smart. It's just so smart.
So I have, it's kind of a side note question, but
oh yeah.
So how did you get into languages? Did you I don't know, any studies that you did? Did you go did you learn any languages in school?
YouTube. Yeah. YouTube, dude. I was I need to design a language. I better get a YouTube degree in linguistics real quick. There's just so much information. And I will say that I went to college for acting though. And in acting school, we got really into Shakespeare, and I, in my class in particular, sort of became obsessed with Shakespeare. I'm just I'm kind of fixated on it. Because before I was an actor, I was a musician, and I learned to play by writing songs, by coming up with songs, but it was all about what it sounded like. It was all about the sound. It was all about the music. And then when I got to Shakespeare, it's he was doing that for actors. The reason he writes things in verse is so you can memorize it, and so that you, and on a deeper level, if you take his speech, I was just looking at Macbeth, if you look at there would have been a time for such a word. That line has an inherent musicality to it, but it's really 2 phrases. There would have been a time for such a word. And what Shakespeare does is he says, I'm not writing for the eye, I'm writing for the ear. And I'm writing for the actor to be able to say something. And so if you just put 2 phrases in every line, you get to have a thought that travels and an important word at the end. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace. Like you take that and you say, I need to make it make more sense. So instead of going into like Stanislavski stuff, you just focus on the music of it. You focus on like the meter is this, creeps in this petty pace from day to day. Boom. And it makes more sense. Pericles has this line where he says like he's about to throw his wife in the ocean. And he says, I must cast thee straight into the ooze. But if you like pause in weird places, if you don't understand that it's 2 phrases put together, you might understand it better, but the audience doesn't. And so like in the music of language and then really looking at word choice, how words are constructed, Shakespeare will often put 2 words together that aren't supposed to go together, but he'll make them share a vowel even if they don't, because it fits the phrase. Boom, sounds like music. Boom, sounds like speech, And so like that's where I got really into language. And then when I started writing fantasy and I got into Tolkien, I started to say like, well, how can I use this? So in my book, all of it's about orcs with emotion magic. And so like whenever the magic happens, it turns into Shakespearean poetry, because in Shakespearean poetry, all of the emotions get heightened, right? And so like it goes from Nala's eye snapped open, it was day in the den, and it's just paragraph form, to once upon a moonful night, there was a girl who was an orc. She had gold slitted eyes and dark green skin. Her black hair, when light touched it, drank it in. And, and each of those lines is just a bunch of phrases. And that's all that it is. It's the music of it. And so it has this fairy tale feel. Versus in other parts, I want it to feel like a Viking poem. And I'll go, bum, 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 bum. Bountiful this bone song. Singers speak through weakness. It has this, like, Viking feel, this archaic, brutish feel. And that feels like orcs to me. But then it can be beautiful. I can go to the Iliad when they're in a galloping scene. And then, that's the meter of the Iliad. Da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know Greek, and no English person seems to care about the meter. So, I can't do the Greek of it, but when I want to use that rhythm, I'll access that poetic form. And all poetic forms really end up going back to myths, because that's where we get poetic forms. A lot of Tolkien is in that Viking, Drottkvat is what the form is called. Da-da-da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da-da-da. And, Tolkien, those are the poems that Tolkien translated. He worked on those poems. He taught those poems. He taught people how to speak and write and study Norse with the Eddas. And so and some of those, so you see that Viking rhythm make its way in to Tolkien's poems. I can't remember which that speech was, but the one that I read last time, Theoden's death speech, excellent poem. It has that Viking dun dun bum 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 bum. Dun 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 dun. It's got a Viking poem form.
No, that's really cool. No, that's I like that. I kind of really just connect with the you're saying the rhyme or meter or whatever, and the pace of the writing, and then also I think that really goes well with the language that you're writing with it, and how those kind of yeah. I guess what was it? I think I've heard that Shakespeare is probably one of the first to have written in the modern English languages. That's where it started.
Yeah,
sort of a
yeah.
thing.
He's considered early modern English. Yeah, I think that there are. I want to say that there are some writers in 1500. By the time it really got to Shakespeare, it was in the culture. And so Shakespeare really spent a lot of his time. I love talking about Shakespeare. So this is a big old rabbit hole, and you can just chop me off at any time. I'm just like,
I probably will.
You should. No one deserves that. But like, yeah, basically the beginning of modern English. Certainly the beginning of modern English entertainment. And it's important to note that like the English language was not standardized it had been in writing. They had the printing press. They didn't have many printing presses, but the technology was there. But the King James Bible is one of the things that standardized English, and that had not come out until the end of Shakespeare's life, after Shakespeare's life, I think. But at least after Queen Elizabeth died, which is the main like positive half of his career, where he was making, like he was mostly just angry after that.
Yeah. You have anything to kind of round up the podcast and with Tolkien or anything from the appendices?
With the languages, with the appendices, I would say you should read them. You should, like if someone hasn't read the appendices yet, like I would start with E and F. Don't start with start with E and F, because like that's where the heart of all Tolkien lives. Like it's maybe 20 or 30 pages. And if you just read it before your next Lord of the Rings reread, so many things are going to kind of light up, and like try to say the words aloud.
Yeah,
and think in
really
phrases.
Cool. Yeah.
Think in phrases. Read Tolkien in phrases. He's very good. He's very good. I would read that whole book right now.
Well, that's great. I'll have to do that. Last time I listened to The Return of the King with Andy Serkis.
Yes.
Talking about it.
Yes.
He didn't go past, if I remember correctly, he didn't go past like appendix.
I think he did the Silmarillion. I don't think he's done, well, he might have, if he has done the appendices, that is cool. That's sick.
He just did the first part. He didn't do anything on the languages.
Man.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear him do the Silmarillion. I bet that would be sick.
Yeah. I have a few. I'm like kind of torn between like reading it or listening to it. And like if I'm a true nerd, true fan, should I listen to it or read it?
Do you have a favorite way to do it?
Honestly, I think I would prefer to read it. But sometimes it's like taking that time to sit down and just read it, or like just being in the car, you can listen to it,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely prefer to read it. And especially with Tolkien. I mean, it's supposed to feel medieval. And like it's hard for something to feel medieval if you can hear it. And specifically the way that he did it, like I'm going for something that's more like a Renaissance feel, like this is not an approach that I would do with everybody, but I want it to feel like a story that people share out loud. I want it to be an audiobook that you get to read, versus Tolkien really wrote a book that only Andy Serkis can perform. But that's my take on it. But also, read it any way you can and want. The audiobooks are great. I'm not trying to punch down, but I really do love to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll have to say also, I don't know if you are a teacher, if you ever teach anything ever, but you could be a teacher.
Cool, thanks, man. I mostly teach story classes, and so I have a couple people that that I'm helping write books for. One really serious student, and I mostly teach how to write fast and edit less. Because if you can't tell, I'm a very I want to roll. My motto is capture the moment and tools, not rules. And so capture the moment. The whole goal of that is the closer I am to the moment and the more raw it is, the better the writing is. But we can talk. Do you have any last thoughts, about the languages and the appendices, or?
My last thoughts. It's just again, just crazy how vast it is.
Yeah.
That he's got just maybe he doesn't spell it out for like as much for every language like he does for Elvish,
Yeah.
but like you're reading in here and it's like, okay, he's like, it's a pretty decent amount where he's telling you how to like, pronounce things and how the languages came about. And
Yeah.
I mean, I just like, it's just kind of crazy because it's like you were saying, like he actually like decided, all right, this is how the language started, and he brings it from somewhere, then he like grows it from there. And it's almost like, I mean, I don't know how much of it of the language he had come up before writing like any of like the unfinished tales, or
It's a good question, honestly. It is.
yeah, I feel like he had like kind of come up with that as it's going, as like he thinks about more characters and like how they're gonna like shift it, like the two elven people, the Noldor and the other
Yes.
one. Like the ones stayed in Middle Earth and the other ones I think like stayed in
Yeah, I can't remember their names because like I've mostly just read it the one time, and then I spend a lot of this kind of time like working on my stuff. But like it's the Noldor and like another, maybe the Fomorians. But there's like another one for sure.
Yeah,
I would
right.
have to look it up.
Yeah. So something like that, you could see like where he's like, all right, these people split and now like they're speaking different dialects of like Elvish now. So
It's so cool. It's like just the coolest thing because they really do feel like real languages.
Mm-hmm. No, that.
And like
Yeah.
he didn't write much of Orcish, but like I have taken some of his Orcish because I want people who have read Tolkien to feel like, oh, this is like fantasy. But the way that he has like thought of the Orcish language is it's a devolved Elvish. It's just Elvish, but it's devolved. And so it feels like a natural language, even though there are only a few words. Every word that he uses, he's like, this was an Elvish word, and let me come up with something real quick. And then he makes it come from an Elvish word. And it makes it feel real, because it's different, but it's related. That's how real languages work. Cool.
Yeah. No, certain. I mean, yeah, I really appreciate your insights and all this stuff. And
I love talking about it.
Yeah, I love talking about it. And
I love trying to say
yeah.
it too, because I spend a lot of time reading it, but not a lot of time trying to actually pronounce it, and that was fun.
Yeah.
We should do one that's just 40 minutes of us trying to pronounce like different
different pieces of the
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
names.
It's just like a really long list. We can have the spellings up there or something. That'd be sick.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Anthony.
What are you like thinking about or working on, or like tell me a little bit more about the story of this podcast, man?
Oh yeah, for sure. So, I started the podcast just before the Rings of Power show came out. So,
oh, cool. So you were there for all that.
Yeah. So like, it was something that's come out of like kind of a desire to keep the show pure. So I started it with, and this is still like kind of the main focus of the podcast, is about Tolkien's worldview coming from his faith.
Right.
So that's kind of like the big focus I have, and I've like kind of honed that in since like especially since the past like few months.
Oh, cool. I've seen a few of the Catholicism ones. Yeah.
I've had a friend who's she's helping me get guests. Sophia, I don't know her. She is.
Yeah, I think she was the one that reached out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of it's been pretty faith based.
Yeah.
Tolkien stuff. I think that for me is like where kind of like that's where the deep part of the story I think really is.
Yeah.
And even though like that stuff is still subtle, and you can't not that you're always gonna be like picking it up, right? You might not even like see it there. So it's not like I'm trying to put something on like the story where it doesn't
not.
Where it doesn't
it's
fit.
Baked in deep. It's baked in deep for sure.
So yeah, it's like, all right, can we like work a little more with like a Iluvatar and like how he played things out in the story, that kind of thing. And there's a few episodes I've had where people have actually kind of, there's been like a lot of the conversation where like, hey, this is, he's actually, I mean, I kind of like, and I could be wrong, I could be wrong, but
you got this.
But Tolkien, is writing a story that's supposed to be in our world. So in a big way, like I think Iluvatar is written as like kind of, it's not the same by any means. Am I saying not the same God of the Bible? But he's still in that same idea. There's a lot of like attributes that he's given to him. And I think I mean, as a Christian who is like focusing on, I could say that that's where, like I can see it that he's taking from like who like the God of the Bible is, and that's what he's putting in Iluvatar in some ways. So I think I could make the case that like you can't just take his representation from just any like mythology, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I would, I mean, it's everything. But like what I think is really cool about Iluvatar is, Tolkien said like, what is the cosmic truth? And like, especially of ethics and morality. He was very, very concerned on like, what is the cosmic truth? Like evil has to destroy itself. How is Iluvatar still good? And Lord of the Rings is kind of an answer to that. There is a lot of evil in Middle-earth, but it always plays out for good reason. And good always wins. And there's always goodness in the world, and evil is always defeated in the end. But evil has to destroy itself. You can't actually destroy evil. Like, you become evil because destruction is evil. And so like that's just a cosmic truth in the story. You'll never see one of the heroes in the Silmarillion or Lord of the Rings. There's never a hero that loses for a bad reason. Like I guess I don't know, I'll have to work on that thought, but like it all happens for a reason, and the heroes always win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's all brought around to
the light always wins is a better way to put it, I think. The light always wins because, like, Frodo does fail, and that's not really what I'm trying to say. But just to clarify, like...
Right. It's like, well, it's the idea, too.
Wins.
Right. It's the idea, too, where, like, even though Frodo failed, something good still came out of it.
The world won.
Yeah. And, yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So... But
yeah, I would love to talk more about that. And like I mean, if you look at the way that the Torah was constructed, and specifically like the Pentateuch is really, really close to the beginning of the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion is structured like a holy book for the elves. And so like he said like they were in line, they had the right idea of Iluvatar, of this one God. But if this was a species from Earth, that means that God was there. And this is their interpretation of those cosmic realities. And he structures it in a very similar way to the Bible in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I feel like we just keep going with this, so we should probably make raps on it. But
sorry.
No. I appreciate you asking like more about the podcast. No, I mean I haven't really.
Yeah.
Like, I'll talk with people afterwards about like how I like started the podcast and all. So this
my
might be,
favorite
like,
podcasts are all like 4 hours, and so like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm warm.
Dude, I've never done a 4-hour podcast. I it's probably a little bit beyond what I could do.
Hey
at
man,
one time,
you got it.
Yeah, but I appreciate it. And like
I'm
very very easy to talk to. And
hey, thanks, man. I mean, I love
fun,
it, you know. And so anytime you've got an opening, I'm happy to hop on and hang out and talk about Tolkien, dude. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you for our next episode next week.